The Writer's Dossier Podcast is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network.
I'm Kyle Mills, and this is my Writer's Dossier.
No writers were harmed in the production of this podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode here of the Writer's Dossier. And tonight, or today, whenever you're listening to this, in the car or wherever you happen to be, we are going to speak with the legendary, I know we have a lot of legends here on the Writer's Dossier, but Kyle Mills is joining us tonight. So Kyle, thanks for being on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Man, so you are a world jet setter. You have a place in Spain and a place in Wyoming, and I understand you're back in the States now. You're going to promote this new fantastic follow-up to Fade. So how is it being back in the States?
Oh, it's good. We've been here back for almost a year. We do a year here and a year in Spain. It's easier because of all the moving. So we don't like to go back and forth too much. So we'll head back to Spain after the book is out and my book tour's over and all that, and be there for like a year before coming back here.
I lived in Europe for several years, and Spain is definitely way up there. So good for you. Great call. And I see all your stuff. People, if you're not following Kyle Mills on social media, please do. You can find him everywhere. And I'm telling you, it's just fun watching what you're up to. And despite the temptation to live a bohemian free lifestyle in Europe, like I know is there, you are still knocking it out. And you've been thinking about your new book character, Islam Al-Fayed, for years. So since finishing Code Red in the Vince Flynn, Mitch Rapp series in 2023, how long until you jumped in and went to work on Fade in a way that you knew this was going to be published?
Almost immediately. I'm a really slow writer. So I tend to take 3 or 4 days off between books. And I had, like you said, I'd been thinking about this character and this story on and off for about 20 years, I guess it would be close to 20 years, maybe 15. So I had an idea of the character still and where I wanted to go with it.
Well, you are also pretty legendary in your outlining. A lot of people have a lot of different approaches. You, though, you're not only an outliner, you spend a lot of time. You said you're a slow writer, but I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, once you get that outline done, it's off to the races, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll write just absolutely huge, like 100-page outlines for things. So every chapter is in place and everything like that. But in a way that gets me familiar with my story and my characters. I wish I could say that I just followed it exactly. Surprisingly, sometimes even in a detailed outline, things look good in an outline, don't look good on the page. So in fact, just before this, I was working on a chapter and said, wow, this is repetitive crap, and deleted the whole thing. But it was in my outline, but just didn't work on the page.
Sounded good at the time, but now it's time to hit that backspace. Well, that's fascinating. I'd love to hear the inside workings of someone of your writing resume, just how it goes. Every once in a while, folks, you get that left turn, you got to go back. So, looking at Fade and the development of this character and these books and the series, I can't think of many counterterrorism main protagonists who are from a Middle Eastern descent. There are some, but did you want Fade to be different in that regard, being from the Middle East, as well as have an Arabic versus language skill set versus someone who just went to the Defense Language Institute for a couple of years and tries to get by with a little Farsi? What was it that made you go with Fade?
I think so. There's kind of a meme, and we've all done it in thrillers, and that is, the person that can go into any situation and be, and blend in and all this stuff. I've lived in London, where my father was a diplomat, and I've lived obviously in Spain. I've lived in South Africa, and blending in ain't that easy. Even an American in England, and learning languages, let me tell you, my nemesis is the Spanish language. I mean, one day I will defeat it, but not yet. And so, I thought it was just easier if I was going to have a character that operated a lot in the Middle East, and also that he would have cultural perspectives. His family were immigrants from Syria, so he grew up speaking Arabic, eating the food with the culture, the religion, all that stuff. So he still likes to sit around and watch Arab soap operas. And so he could very easily blend in there, and that backstory worked for me.
I spent a lot of time in the Middle East myself, and we would hire, you can call them interpreters or whatever, but they preferred the term cultural advisor, the ones who rose up to a certain level, because that's just it. That's the distinction between just knowing the language and knowing everything else.
Yeah, it's I think underestimated. I just finished renovating our flat in Spain, and my wife would make fun of me because my Spanish is pretty good. So I understood everything, and they understood me, but the breakdowns were a lot of times were cultural. Like I didn't I'll tell you one thing, Americans we're very abrupt and very mercenary. Where our attitude is I'm going to give you this much money, you're going to provide me this service, and that's the end of our relationship. But man, the Spanish just do not operate in that way at all. And so I think I came off as a complete dick half the time until I learned, you have a glass of wine, you hang out, whatever.
Get some
And then
manchego,
things
some
start to get better.
tapas.
But
Yeah.
who would have thought, it's a contractor. Your plumbing's leaking, make it stop. I'll give you money.
I love that you understand that, because so many people don't. And my first 5 months in Italy were just a disaster, because I would call someone to come do something, like set up the internet. And this dude shows up at like 5:30 in the evening, because that's just how, he'd just gotten up from his nap or whatever,
Yeah, he
and
probably told you you'd be there at 11 in the morning,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. So yeah, I took the day off work kind of thing. So I'm waiting. And sure enough, he works for a couple hours. I'm new there. I barely have any Italian. He has no English. And he just leaves. So I look out the door, and there goes this truck. And I look at the cable, and the wires are just spilling out of the wall. And he's not done. I don't know if he's coming back. Yes.
Might just be
But
coffee.
after you get used to that, and I had to just give in. I had to break. And once you do that, then it's wonderful and amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so you've got to really embrace it. I mean, South Africa, when we were living there, was even crazier. I mean, all the dynamics there, the political dynamics, the racial dynamics, and all that stuff, and you just didn't understand any of it. I tried to fire our maid, and because we were living in like a 400 square foot flat, right? We cleaned it ourselves, and oh my God, I said that at a party full of South Africans, and it like went silent. And they were like, you're lucky in life. You're white, you're rich, and you can't fire her because she needs the work and you have money. And I thought, man, that never occurred to me to look at it that way. And I was like, oh, well, given that, of course I won't fire her. Yeah, it just felt horrible.
Don't be such a jerk, Kyle.
Exactly. Like, she wasn't great at her job. It was just like, I mean, how long does it take you to clean your own 400 square foot flat?
I love it when people get out there and understand through experiential learning, so many cultural things, because then you can really put that in your writing in a whole different way. And I know you've done a lot of research, and you've been around a lot of people in a lot of different places. I want to talk just a little bit more about Faye, and then we've got some fun questions. Besides what we've already talked about, how is Faye different from all the other dudes who are out there killing terrorists? I mean, there's Gabriel Alon, there's Rapp, there's Reacher, there's Red, Harrington, Horvath. The list is endless. Why Fade?
We live now, I think, in a world that's really different than the kind of the early era of that Vince Flynn maybe grew up in, and I did to some extent too, of Islamic terrorism and the sort of good guy and the bad guy. There's a lot going on now. I mean, crazy stuff geopolitically, economically around the world, internal divisions in the United States that are growing. He seemed like a good guy to tell that story in the current context, right? He's not. I wanted a guy who isn't the master of his universe. That's somebody that can get swept along kind of the same way we do, get depressed, not understand really what's happening and all that. Honestly, I had considered sticking with the Rapp thing because it was a terrific job and I love the fans and such a great character. But the story I wanted to tell, because Rapp is always in control and always in charge, it really didn't work for the story I wanted to tell. That's Fade. Fade gets depressed. He feels like he's coming back in the way many military people did to a world that is really different. And he's struggling to find his place in it. He's drinks too much, takes too many drugs. He's a little nihilistic and sarcastic, and really isn't sure what he wants to do with his life. So he has the same deadly skills. He's former SEAL and a legend in that arena. So he has the same skills as Mitch Rapp, but from a personality standpoint, utterly, utterly different. And I once had a scene in a Rapp book where Scott Coleman had been really badly injured, and he was trying to find a temporary replacement for him. And as a joke, I almost went and said, "Hey, Salam Al Fayed's available." And Rapp would be like, "Oh my God, I'm not
that
listening
guy.
to that same Go-Go's record over and over again." And last time we did an op in India, he spent all night redoing the interior of the car in pink velour and sticking little figurines all over it with epoxy. And so there's the difference between those two guys.
That's our clip right there.
I
That's
took it out,
fantastic. Yeah, if we had Ryan Steck on the show, he could tell us what book and what chapter that scene came from.
I'm sure he could, yes.
Hey, you brought up Rapp. To publish your first Fade book, you left Simon & Schuster's Emily Bestler books and went to Authors Equity. Now, Louise Penny, who's also there, said that it's time for a different way of doing business. Is that new way of doing business about how authors are paid through Authors Equity? Is it a process with no book advances, or is there more to it than that?
It is kind of, so you just make more for the sale of the books, but you don't get the advance. And then they kind of build a team around you, and you're much more involved than you would be in a normal publishing, or in the normal publishing arena. And particularly for me, because I have not been that involved, because, while I wrote the Mitch Rapp books, I'm not Vince Flynn, right? So I mostly wrote the books and then did, publicity and social media and stuff. But, I looked at covers and stuff, but I didn't really feel like it was my role to tell them I don't like the color of that cover, right? So yeah, this has been a real change. It's pretty funny. You get like, man, you're down in the chapter breaks. Do you like the dots or the dashes? And kind of thing. So it's been really fun. And I kind of lost my knowledge of how the publishing industry works. And it's changed a lot over, last 15 years or something. And so it's been really fun for me to learn about it again, and what's going on with it now, to work with a team of people that are, really creative and wanting to do something different. And with Fade, this whole thing was about fun for me. I wanted to do something just completely different, and Authors Equity was perfect in that sense for me too, because it's kind of exciting. It's new. You're in on the ground floor. So like, you can direct somebody, you can call them and say, "What if your company did this?" And they're like, "Hey, that's a great idea. We're going to implement that." Try that at Simon & Schuster.
So you enjoy rolling up your sleeves and just digging right in with the creatives and everything, all part of the process.
And they can turn on a dime, like somebody comes up with a good idea and they're like, "Tomorrow we'll be implementing that," so, it wouldn't be for everybody, but for me, it just was the perfect thing. It was just the perfect fit.
Nice. Really glad you're happy there. Now, James Clear is one of the co-founders at Authors Equity, and I really enjoy his newsletters. I'm sure you've read some of the stuff that he puts out. In your experience so far, have you seen a strong James Clear type influence on things? He has a certain way about thinking that many people might seem to appreciate.
I don't know who I'd attribute it to be honest with you. And again, it's really changed. I mean, when I signed on with them, I think they probably had 4 employees or something. So every time, I talk to them, they're onboarding a new person, or they've got somebody that's specializing in thrillers or whatever. So I think it's kind of been a work in progress, and that's been really fun, because I think they've really been able to tailor things to me, to every author that they're with. Yeah, it's an interesting process. I don't know who I'd attribute to all those ideas to, whether, there are so many really talented people there.
All right. Well, the last question here, I think Cocktails with Kyle was your idea. Tell me a little bit about that, because, Man, we're broadcasting here from the Dossier studio / writer's room / speakeasy. So every time I see Cocktails with Kyle, I think, what's he making? Is he making a Negroni? Is he making, something a little more complex? Are you an old fashioned guy? Tell us a little about Cocktails with Kyle and how people can follow along with that.
Yeah, so that's part of, I mean, if you just follow along in my different news feeds, from we tease them and you can just click into them and watch them. And these are just, they're really interviews with friends of mine that are writers. Me and Brad Thor just did one like 2 days ago. And it's really a talk about, well, all kinds of things, a little bit about writing, about their backgrounds, about, where the world is going, where the thriller world is going, all those changes, might be changes in publishing, just kind of a more or less informal chat between us and a cocktail. Hopefully I'm now, because of Fade, his favorite is tequila. So I'm sticking with the tequila at the moment. That's my theme, but you never know.
Hey, the price you pay for Fade's fame, stick with it. Keep doing it. And we enjoy those. Thanks for doing them, and we appreciate you keep doing them. So last thing here, actually, you mentioned you had to delete a bunch recently. So are you working on Fade 3?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Nice. So everyone can look forward to that. Kyle, KyleMills.com is the website. Kyle, where else? I mean, where were you most active on social media? If people are just discovering the Fade stuff, I mean, where can we really follow you the most?
X, but also Instagram and Facebook.
There you
I've
go.
not delved into TikTok yet.
Me either.
I'm not sure I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm resisting the urge. But man, thanks so much for coming back to the States and doing this tour. I think this follow-up book to Fade is going to be fantastic, because the first one you had in your head, you got that out. And now this one, completely different story. I think people are going to really have a good time with it. Get back into Kyle Mills, start following you on the Cocktails with Kyle and on your social media. And definitely, folks, check out KyleMills.com and watch for Fade. Coming July 29th off the top of my head?
July 29th, I think so.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. We'll watch for that. Folks, thanks for joining us tonight on the Writer's Dossier. And Kyle, thanks so much for joining us. It's always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. The Dossier Podcast is a production of The Idea Academy.